You go through an entire day without anyone asking how you really are, and you pretend that's normal. There are millions of people who go to sleep each night wondering if anyone would notice if they disappeared. And then Pope Francis wrote them a letter. The letter that no one saw coming. It didn't come through a press release. It wasn't backed by a media campaign or designed for social media likes. There was no viral headline. It was quieter than that. More human. More holy. It was a letter handwritten, personal, heartfelt from a man in white robes sitting at the center of one of the most powerful religious institutions on earth. To people the world has forgotten. Not celebrities. Not world leaders. Not the constantly online. But the invisible ones. The ones who feel like they've disappeared behind their own eyes. The ones who cry in bathroom stalls so no one hears. The ones who scroll at night not to be entertained, but to feel less alone. The ones who feel the silence creeping in after midnight and wonder if they matter to anyone at all. Pope Francis didn't just acknowledge their existence. He wrote to them. And in that fragile, sacred space where loneliness meets honesty, offered one of the most unexpected, most healing messages a modern soul could hear. He didn't try to fix anyone. He didn't quote doctrine. He didn't say, "You'll be okay." He said something deeper, truer, something this generation has been longing for. You are not forgotten, not because you're successful, not because you're seen, not because you're strong, but because you're alive. And because your existence, yes, even in this quiet suffering still, carries light. Following the letter's gentle opening, Pope Francis turned his attention to a truth most people are too ashamed to say out loud but desperately need to hear. Loneliness is not a failure. To feel alone does not mean you are unloved. It means you are still longing for something true. Those are the words. Simple, quiet, but devastatingly real. Because loneliness is not a character flaw. It is not a diagnosis. It is not proof that you've done something wrong. It is proof that you are still human, still open, still aching for something honest in a world that keeps offering filters instead of faces. Pope Francis didn't try to wrap the feeling in platitudes. He didn't say, "Cheer up," or "Count your blessings." He said something deeper. Your pain is not invisible to heaven. Let that sink in. Not invisible, not dismissed, not something you need to apologize for. Because what we've done collectively as a culture is dangerous. We've traded presence for performance. We measure connection by likes instead of listening. We reward the loudest voice in the room and miss the softest cry behind closed doors. And in all of that noise, we've forgotten what it means to sit with someone in their silence without needing to fix it. Pope Francis called loneliness the wound of our time, not a symptom, not a phase, a wound. That means it deserves tenderness, compassion, not shame. And the people who feel it most deeply, they are not broken. They are simply brave enough to admit they still need something real. A real voice, a real touch, a real God who doesn't walk away. In the last part, we talked about loneliness as a wound that deserves tenderness, not shame. But what happens when no one else shows up to soothe that wound? What if the silence gets louder? That's where Pope Francis offers his most powerful truth. When God sits in the silence with you, even if no one knocks, God never left the room. It sounds like poetry. But Pope Francis didn't write it for beauty. He wrote it for survival. Because when you feel like no one sees you, when the texts go unanswered, when the room goes quiet, when even your own reflection feels distant, wants you to know. You are not alone. Not in the metaphorical sense. Not in the someone out there cares kind of way, but in the most literal, sacred, soul-saving way possible. There is a presence that shows up when the lights go off and the mask comes off. A love that does not require performance. A God who isn't waiting for your strength to return, but who meets you in the mess. Right there, on the floor, in the silence. God does not wait for your strength. He meets you in your weakness. That's what Pope Francis reminded us. This isn't religion built on rules. This is relationship built on rest. You don't have to explain why you feel empty. You don't have to earn love back. You just have to be willing to let yourself be held by something larger, something softer, something that never left. Imagine this, a love so constant, it stays when everyone else goes home. A presence that doesn't flinch at your doubts or your silence. A divine attention that says, I see you, even when you can't lift your eyes. And maybe, just maybe, that's what we're really aching for. Not more advice. Not more noise. Just someone who doesn't walk away. We've seen how Pope Francis speaks to the lonely, but now he turns the mirror toward us, the ones who are surrounded by others, but often too distracted to truly see. A world that needs to pay attention. This letter was not only for the lonely, it was for those of us who walk past pain without recognizing it. Who eat at tables with people who haven't smiled in weeks because we never paused long enough to notice? Ask yourself, Pope Francis said, who at your table is silent? Who in your life hasn't smiled in a while? It's a simple question, but it cuts deep. Because we've become a culture of fast glances and shallow greetings. We ask, how are you? But rarely wait for the real answer. We mistake someone's silence for stability. We assume that people who seem strong aren't silently breaking. Pope Francis doesn't just call for awareness. He calls for a revolution of tenderness. A world where eye contact is sacred again. Where presence becomes a form of prayer. Where we knock not just on doors, but on hearts. Imagine this world. Where you bring soup to the friend who didn't ask. Where you sit in silence next to someone grieving and don't try to fix it. Where your message to them isn't get better, but I'm with you. Pope Francis dares us to become more than bystanders. He asks us to become sanctuary, to make our presence the kind of shelter someone else might need just to breathe. Because you never know what someone is carrying. And sometimes, the most powerful thing you can say isn't, I understand. It's, you don't have to be okay, but I want you to know I see you. This letter wasn't addressed to you, but it was written for you. This letter may never trend. It might not make headlines or go viral. But somehow, right now, it's landing exactly where it needs to be. In your hands. In your heart. In the part of you that has quietly wondered if anyone would ever notice that you're not okay. Pope Francis didn't know your name, but his words knew your ache. You are not forgotten. You are not invisible. You are not alone. And just for a moment, let that truth sit inside your chest. Breathe. Don't rush to the next thing. Don't scroll away too fast. Let this be a pause, a small act of kindness for the soul behind your screen. And if this message reached you in a way you didn't expect, send it on. Not to go viral, but to go human. Someone else out there is pretending they're fine too. And maybe this is the whisper they didn't know they needed. Drop a comment. Not for the algorithm, but so someone else reading it feels less alone. Subscribe to Mindful Way Television. Because this isn't just a YouTube channel. It's a space for those who crave depth in a world of distraction. And when you're ready, our next video is waiting. It may not be loud, but it might just be the most honest thing you hear all day.